The first time Jake stepped off the plane at Heathrow, he was already convinced that moving to the UK would be an adventure of a lifetime. Fresh out of college, with dreams bigger than his wallet, he imagined cozy flats in London, pub nights with friends, and Instagram-worthy moments around the city. What he didn't expect was trouble waiting just a few streets away. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, please subscribe, like my video, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next update. Jake had rented a small 2-bedroom flat in East London through an online platform, and everything looked perfect in the pictures. The wooden floors, the sunny living room, the promise of no hidden fees. But the reality hit him within the first week. The rent was higher than he expected. The landlord, Mr. Thompson, was strict, and the rules, well, they were unlike anything Jake had faced in the US. It started small. Jake argued about minor things: the heating bill, the Wi-Fi cost, even the deposit. In America, he would mutter to himself, the landlord can't just charge whatever they want. But here, in the UK, Mr. Thompson had the law on his side. And that law was strict. Weeks passed, and Jake refused to pay full rent, thinking he could negotiate later. He paid half, then delayed another month, telling himself it was no big deal. Meanwhile, tension simmered in the building. Neighbors whispered in the hallway, and Mr. Thompson's polite emails slowly became formal notices. One evening, Jake returned from a night out to find a notice slipped under his door. He barely glanced at it, tossing it aside, laughing nervously. Probably just another reminder, he told himself. But it wasn't a reminder. It was a Section 8 eviction notice, the first step in a legal process he didn't even understand. Jake, Mr. Thompson said firmly when he stopped by, you've missed 3 months of rent. I warned you, you need to pay or leave. Look, man, I've got bills in the US. I'm just waiting for my first paycheck. You can't kick me out over a few £100s. Oh, but I can, Mr. Thompson replied. UK law protects landlords too. And you signed the lease? In America, eviction could drag for months, sometimes years. Here, in Britain, the law moved faster, and Mr. Thompson had done everything by the book. Days turned into tense nights. Jake barricaded himself mentally, thinking he could outsmart the system. He stopped answering calls, ignored emails, and even changed his routine to avoid the landlord. But avoidance only escalated the situation. Then came the shock. One morning, the locksmith knocked. Mr. Thompson, standing beside him with a solemn look, said, "I'm sorry, Jake. The court has ruled. You have 24 hours. Jake froze. 24 hours. Just like that, his British dream was crumbling. He argued, shouted, even threatened to call someone in America to handle this. But in the UK, international threats don't hold weight. He packed a bag in silence, watching neighbors peek through their curtains. The flat that had felt like his home was now a symbol of his mistakes. Jake realized, too late, that understanding local tenant laws isn't just bureaucracy. It can make the difference between staying and homelessness. As he walked down the street, dragging his suitcase, a neighbor muttered, "American?" Jake nodded. "Yeah, just got kicked out." The cultural shock was complete. In the US, being late on rent might get you a warning, a phone call, or even a month-long grace period. In the UK, once the legal notices start, the clock doesn't stop. And Jake had ignored every signal. He tried to find temporary housing, couch-surfed, and even stayed in a hostel. Every night, the reality sank in. His adventure had turned into a cautionary tale. He posted a story online, warning fellow Americans, but even social media didn't ease the sting. The legal fees, the lost deposit, and the humiliation lingered. Weeks later, Jake finally got back on his feet, renting a small room in a different part of London, fully aware this time of the strict rules. He had learned the hard way. Cultural differences aren't just quirks. They affect your life, your finances, and your dignity. The moral was clear. Paying rent on time isn't optional. And understanding local laws is not just smart, it's survival. But Jake's story didn't end there. Part 2 of his ordeal reveals the long-term consequences of ignoring eviction rules. After the eviction, Jake tried to rent another flat, but every application was rejected. His credit history in the UK was now flagged. Landlord saw an eviction record and refused him, leaving him in a cycle of temporary housing. He even tried contacting legal aid, but the process was slow. Meanwhile, his story went viral among expats. Comments flooded in. Warnings, laughter, even sympathy. Some Americans admitted they had almost made the same mistake. Jake realized that the eviction had a ripple effect. Job applications became complicated, referencing his stable housing history, and even travel arrangements were disrupted because he had no permanent address. One day, sitting in a small coffee shop, Jake overheard a British couple talking about how many Americans misunderstand tenant rights. He smiled grimly, sipping his overpriced latte. "Lesson learned," he muttered. From that moment, Jake became almost obsessive about learning UK laws: deposits, rent periods, notice requirements, and tenant responsibilities. He even started advising fellow expats online, sharing his humiliation as a warning. In the end, Jake's eviction was more than losing a flat. It was a brutal lesson in respecting rules, understanding cultural differences, and the importance of communication. And although he finally stabilized his life in London, the memory of being kicked out remained vivid, a cautionary tale for any foreigner daring to live abroad without understanding the law. "Don't make my mistakes," he often said. "Pay your rent, know your rights, and never underestimate the power of local rules." And that, friends, is a story that could happen to anyone stepping into a new country, thinking it will all be easy, thinking the rules don't apply. But in the UK, they do, and Jake's American dream came at a cost he would never forget. So, if you're planning to move abroad, remember Jake. Learn your laws, respect your landlords, pay your rent. Because adventure is thrilling, but eviction is unforgettable. Weeks after his eviction, Jake thought the worst was behind him. He had found a tiny room in a shared flat across London. But the shadow of the eviction lingered everywhere he went. Every rental application he submitted seemed doomed. Landlords checking references, seeing the eviction record, shaking their heads. He even tried to sublet temporary rooms, but neighbors whispered, and word spread. One evening, a neighbor approached him cautiously. "You were the guy with the eviction notice, right?" Jake swallowed hard. "Yeah, that's me." The neighbor's sympathetic glance was small comfort. Word travels fast in small communities, and for Jake, that was a brutal reality check. Desperate, he turned to social media. He posted a video explaining his side, hoping to warn other Americans. Within hours, the video went viral. Comments flooded in, some mocking, some sympathetic, others outraged. "You should have known UK laws are strict," one user wrote. "I almost made the same mistake," another admitted. Jake realized his misfortune had now become entertainment for thousands online. But there was more trouble waiting. The unpaid rent and legal fees had been reported to debt agencies. UK credit checks flagged him, making future renting even harder. One landlord flat out told him, "Until that eviction is resolved, I cannot rent to you." Even jobs that required proof of stable housing became challenging. Jake's American optimism collided harshly with the rigid reality of the UK system. Then came the final blow. Mr. Thompson, the landlord, had sold his flat. The new owner had no interest in negotiation and was strict about background checks. Jake realized that his mistake wasn't just a temporary inconvenience, it had long-term consequences that would follow him across London. Sitting in a small coffee shop one rainy morning, Jake stared out the window, reflecting. His dream of living abroad had been shattered, not by crime or misfortune, but by ignorance and arrogance. "I thought I could wing it, like back home," he whispered to himself. "But I forgot. Rules matter here. Respect matters here." By the end of the week, Jake decided to take responsibility. He contacted legal aid, negotiated repayment plans, and slowly started rebuilding his credibility. Each step was small, each day a reminder that paying attention to laws and respecting agreements isn't optional. It's survival. Jake's eviction had become more than just a story. It was a cautionary tale, a lesson etched into his life, and a warning for anyone crossing borders without understanding the rules. In the UK, cultural misunderstandings could cost you far more than money. They could cost your reputation, opportunities, and peace of mind. And as he finally settled into his new tiny flat, Jake promised himself, never again would he underestimate the importance of knowing the law. Because sometimes the hard lessons are unforgettable, and the price of ignorance is eviction.